Hi there, this is Laura Zelenak again with Marshfield Clinic Health System Center for Community Health Advancement. And the Center for Community Health Advancement works on community health in Wisconsin. And I'm here today with Dr. Eric Hartwig of the b.e.s.t program. And b.e.s.t, again, stands for Behavioral, Emotional, Social Traits. And you may have seen some news articles or interviews about it recently. We just released this year's list of schools that are implementing the b.e.s.t program, so there's been a bit of news about it in Wisconsin. And Marshfield Clinic Health System and Security Health Plan have been working with Dr. Hartwig and his team at b.e.s.t to support the behavioral health of students in many, many districts throughout Wisconsin. And today we're going to talk about the importance of one-on-one interaction with children and why it's so important. So good to see you again, Dr. Hartwig. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Great to see you again. Thanks for having me. I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Me too. Thanks.
Yeah.
So in your trainings, you talk about the importance, how important it is that child have one-on-one time with the important adults in their lives. Most importantly, a parent or a caregiver, but also teachers and other adults. What does one-on-one time provide for children?
Well, I think the most important thing is the sacred trust that's built between adults and children is a critical aspect of that time that you spend with them. When children are uncomfortable and things are difficult for them, they look to adults or caregivers for three very important things. First of all, when they're stressed, the adult will come to them. Secondly, when the adult comes, they're going to provide support and not make the problem worse. They're going to provide support to help the child mediate that situation. And the third, and this is very, very important for individual growth, is that the child and the adult stay connected in some fashion, creating what I call an emotional tether. So as the child explores their world, they know that they have this backup. They know that they have this support person that's able to help them solve some of their individual problems. I think the key here is that it's a time of mutual respect and trust that we want to build on. When little kids are small, everything they get is from adults. And as they start to grow and become more independent, they start to expand their world, but they always need to have that sort of anchor. And that's where the caregiver comes in. And that's why one-on-one time is so important. We all like to feel important, and it's a critical aspect of social emotional growth for kids.
Very interesting. Yeah, so you mentioned the response, so an adult would need to respond to the child, give that support for the child. So give me an example of an interaction that maybe you've seen or a kind of textbook model interaction for one-on-one time.
I think an important part of one-on-one time is to be sure that as an adult that you don't intercede with your emotions and your feelings. When a child starts to share their thoughts and feelings and you're creating a one-on-one time, they should be able to talk openly and freely about how they feel about something. We may not agree with their feelings and we may not think they're the right feelings, but that's not helpful for a child who's struggling. And that one-on-one time is an opportunity for a child to just tell us about what's going on in their life. And when you open up that door, you find out things about your children that maybe they're concerned about. Just this morning, I was talking to one of my assistants and we were saying the importance that many kids look okay and feel okay and they express themselves that everything is okay, but inside they just are troubled by things. They maybe feel uncomfortable. And if we don't open up that door and provide that opportunity for them to be able to express that, it gets lost. And we want to be sure that kids know that when they feel something or they just want to talk, that it's important that they can trust the adults in their life and that the caregivers are going to help them again and not hurt them.
That goes back to something that you said earlier in one of our earlier conversations about internalizing. So even if a child seems okay, it sounds like they really need that one-on-one time to be able to dig out that information that they may not openly be sharing, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think what happens is the objective reality, sometimes we hear kids' words. For example, they might say something that seems troubling, but then they might say, but it doesn't really bother me. And a lot of times as adults, we just take that at face value and think that that solves the problem, when in fact, we have to do more. You need to pay attention to children's words, but you also have to pay attention to feelings. You know, have you ever gone out to eat with somebody someplace and they say to you, well, where would you like to go? And you say to them, well, I don't care. And that other person says, well, let's go to this, steak joint. And then you say, well, no, I'm not interested in that. And then they say, well, where would you like to go? And you say, well, I really don't care. Well, of course you do, and so your words and your feelings have to match. And that's the time that you give kids, because frankly, kids really are going to be very careful sometimes, even with their family members, to share things because they don't want to be demeaned or reinterpreted, and their behaviors are maybe read the wrong way. So kids are going to be very careful about it. So you create that sacred time, and pretty soon you're going to find that children will be very, very comfortable with that.
Yeah. Well, and openly, I can think of lots of examples where it's difficult to really share your true experience. What are some really good maybe tips for parents on do's and don'ts when you're having that one-on-one time? Let's say you're a parent, you're making that effort. I'm gonna set some time aside to do this. How often should that be? Is it okay to schedule it, or is it okay to just let it come up? And then during that interaction, what are some really good do's and don'ts to keep in mind?
Great questions. I think a couple of things. First of all, whether it's a random discussion or time, or if you pick a certain structure and say, like every morning, for example, in our schools, we use what's called check-in, check-out, or 2x10, which is a really formalized time where we pick times. First thing in the morning, we're going to start the day with these kind of conversations. And so for parents, a good reminder is, your child gets up, you could start right in the morning and say, okay, here's your time. And then at the end of the day, to make sure that you make that connection. And each time that you have these meetings, you make sure that you hand them off to say, and by the way, we're going to talk again this afternoon, or I can't wait to see you in the morning when you put them to bed. But and if you want to encourage communications, you have to be like a mirror as a parent. And you really have to understand that you're going to have to take some time to listen to what they have to say. And what's the irony of it is the more interested in the conversation, adults oftentimes feel like they have to give advice or share their interpretation of a situation. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do. You should be like a mirror. When you go into your living room, to just before you go out, you check to see if everything's in place. That's what you should be, is like the mirror. You're just reflecting what they're saying and what they're feeling to understand them. So taking the time to recategorize what they might say, understanding that their time may mean that you might be inconvenienced for a little bit. I know that sounds odd, but sometimes, people just want to have a conversation and they just do it superficially. This is real time that you want to be able to spend with your child. I think another thing is the tone, how you carry it. When you think about it, you can say the same thing, but you use a different tone and it has a different meaning. So be sensitive about that. Be careful not to judge or evaluate what kids say. The goal here is to help them mediate and solve the problem. Your job as a parent or as a caregiver is to be able to provide the guidance so that they can solve the problem on their own. Because if the problem is a school issue and you're at home, you're not going to help them solve it at school. So we have to give them the tools to be able to manage their world. The other thing is that this is not something that you just talk about and then you forget about it. If there's something that comes up that's disconcerting to you, you have to be able to work on it. You want children to be able to know that they can seek out help, but you also want them to develop the skills to be able to manage their own world. And I think the thing, as I said a little bit earlier, we have to pay attention to the words, but dig deeper and look behind the words, the feelings. When somebody says, I don't care, or that's not important to me, it usually is. And so we want to be able to understand what the purpose or the function with their state of their behavior, not just the words that they use. So really simply is create the sacred time, make sure that you spend the time and you listen with meaning and feelings, and to understand that the child also has a right to feel the way they feel. Our job is not to redirect their feelings or to solve the problem. It's to help them come together. Remember, when you're uncomfortable, your stress level and your fight or flight response is elevated. So we want to bring them back down to calm so they can better problem solve their own situations. And then we guide them. To me, those are the important things. And there's so many things that you can do. You're not going to be able to just point out to a child or ask them what's troubling to them. You have to build up to that. So, you start out, well, how was your day? What did you do today for somebody that that was kind? So you can start the conversation in a very casual way so that eventually they feel more comfortable with sharing their thoughts and their feelings. That's the kind of environment that you want to create for a child, so they feel comfortable telling you how they feel without being judged or evaluated in any fashion or way.
That sounds simple, but it also sounds like it would be really, really hard to do. I know with my nephews, your first inclination is to somehow help, to somehow do something, but it really sounds like you try not to do, you just be and listen. Is that right?
Yeah, and you can help, you can paraphrase their statement. You can say, I hear what you're saying, and is this correct? And then you try to describe what they just told you, because sometimes you might actually even be misinterpreting what they're saying, or you can help them clarify their thoughts and feeling. But yeah, that's really it in a nutshell, is that I think, and think about it as an adult. Have you ever just wanted somebody to listen to you? You're not asking for advice. You're not asking for them to solve your problem. You just want them to listen, because you know that when you come back to calm, you're going to problem solve. That's what self-regulation is all about, the ability to cognitively problem solve solutions and manage your emotions so you can make goal-directed decisions about what's appropriate. That's a very important part. So yeah, you have to be careful about it. It's hard not to do that. And as adults, we like to solve problems, don't we?
Right, yeah. We want to be the heroes. Come on.
Yeah. But in the end, doesn't it make more sense to help children solve their problems so that the next time they have a similar problem, or they're more independent in some place where you can't support them, that they use the skills you taught them so they can manage their world in the future? At the very beginning of this conversation, that emotional tether, the strength that you get as an adult or an individual in a family, is that what your parents give you with that support, or your classroom teachers, or other caregivers, a neighbor. It doesn't have to be just somebody you always see, but somebody that you can trust and respect, and that there's a mutual relationship there that allows you to be able to look at the world a little bit more clearer. And I think that's what's important. And that sacred time, honestly, we have this innate quality to form relationships with adults, and you're born with that. If you've ever seen any of the FaceTime studies, you can see little kids connect very quickly with their families, and they look to them for calm and support and direction. And when they don't get it, they get flustered and they struggle. We want to let kids know that we're here to help them, and that's really the key as a parent.
Well, that is really great information for parents. Do you have any final starting points or tips before we wrap up today's conversation? If I were listening to this and trying to implement this in my own family, where would I start? What would be a first good habit to form?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, number one is that you have to make time to do this. You have to promise yourself that you're going to start spending a little bit more significant time with your children or your other adults in your life. Secondly, sometimes other people aren't willing to share their thoughts. So you may start out modeling and sharing your thoughts. You might say, man, I had a bad day today, and I'm hoping you're going to help me make it better. You make me smile when I see you, so maybe we can talk about something that you did today that was fun. And so there's all sorts of leading questions. Did you see somebody today who was unhappy? Did you have fun today? Tell me what you did. There are so many ways, and that little stuff, while it seems like a surface thing, what it does is opens the door for empathetic discussions that we want kids and family members to have. So just get on with it. Get off the dime, as we used to say in the old days. That's what I would think would be important.
Well, that's a great starting point. Make the time and start asking questions. Start opening up that dialogue.
Yep, and listening carefully.
And listening. And being a mirror, reflecting.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yes, for sure.
Well, thank you so much again for your time, Dr. Hartwig. It's so interesting to hear all the great information about working with kids and supporting kids that they grow up to be happy and healthy adults. I really appreciate your time, and I know everyone working on b.e.s.t and the schools that work with you really appreciate all the work that you spend, all the work that you do, and the time that you spend with them is much appreciated by many. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for this opportunity to talk about this. I really appreciate it. It's always good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. And we've got one more planned. So we're going to talk about, next time we're going to talk about maintaining good and positive relationships during this very uncertain COVID time. So schools can be a really stressful place now, and relationships are strained. So looking forward to your thoughts on that. And if you are interested in seeing other videos, we have them posted on our Facebook page. You can also visit the Marshfield Clinic Health System YouTube channel, and there's a b.e.s.t playlist there to watch. So until next time, thanks for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much too. Bye-bye.
Bye.